Good evening. I call to order this regular meeting of the Verona Township Council for Monday, July 1st, 2024. This is our annual reorganizational meeting as well. Madam Clerk, could you please read the Open Public Meetings Act compliance statement?
The notice of the Open Public Meetings Act has been satisfied with respect to this meeting of the Township Council. The meeting time and date were included in the public meeting notice along with the public internet link and telephone call-in information. That notice and the meeting agenda was posted in the municipal building and sent to the official newspapers of the township, the Verona City Grove Times and the Star Ledger, at least 48 hours preceding the start time of this meeting. The agenda and public handouts can be viewed online at www.veronanj.org/council meetings. A public comment period will be held in the order it's listed on the meeting agenda, and instructions on how to comment will be provided at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Would you please call the roll?
Councilwoman Holland? Here. Councilwoman McGrath? Here. Councilman Roman?
Here.
Deputy Mayor McAvoy?
Present.
Mayor Tamboro?
Here.
Mayor also present is Township Manager Joseph Yarko, Township Attorney Brian Aloya, Deputy Township Manager Kevin O'Sullivan, myself, Municipal Clerk Jennifer Kieran.
Thank you very much. Would everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God. And justice for all. Right. My report will be brief this evening. I'd first like to congratulate the Verona High School class of 2024. It was an honor to attend my 16th graduation at the high school, and it was great that everybody from the council was present. This was a particularly wonderful class of kids that I had the pleasure of teaching and advising. Many I taught in multiple classes, so this will be a big loss for Verona, but certainly a big gain for their colleges and universities and workplaces and the world in general. I would like to mention our fireworks, which were fantastic. It's always a lovely evening. We had quite a few people come up who were new attendees of the fireworks to say how great they thought they were and thank us for that. The fireworks take a lot of planning and energy and time to do. So I did want to recognize all the groups that start planning the fireworks several months in advance. Our Department of Community Services and Recreation, our Department of Buildings and Grounds, our DPW, who was out in force that evening, our police department, the Verona Fire Department, the Verona Rescue Squad, the Verona Emergency Management Office, and probably always the stars of the evening, the Verona Fire Prevention Bureau, which is necessary to have the fireworks. So thank you, everybody, for jumping in, especially the folks volunteering their time. And finally, happy Independence Day. Everybody has a safe and joyous day. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Mr. Schultre, our county liaison.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Have some wonderful news when the mic goes on for you. Number one, Councilwoman Holland, your tree should be removed.
I saw it's gone.
Park.
Thank you.
That's number one. But the big thing that I got information on the last week, at the end of the last week, is you're going to get a safety light, or whatever you were calling it, handicap light. So that is in the way it works. I spoke to the engineer. He's the one who told me that they are in the process of doing that. So like I said, also last week, you're going to get also at Pease and Lakeside, a crosswalk. So these are very, very important things, in my opinion. I know in your opinion also. That being said, the other things that we have going on, we have an abundance of activities for our summer music festival. This past Friday, we had fireworks at Brantford Park. Again, we will have them tomorrow night at Weequahic Park. And then on July 3rd, which is a great day, it's my birthday, so I will not be there, but in spirit I will be. And that's at Brookdale Park at dusk. And there's usually a significant crowd there, very, very nice. And accolades to all your departments. When I did pass, I happened to be in Verona, not for the fireworks, but they were doing a great job, law enforcement, fire, etc. The other things that the zoo is opening late on Wednesdays, so you can get in there. The other thing is we are having wellness at the South Mountain Arena. And I won't go through it because it'll be redundant, but on Mondays, July 8th, 15th, 22nd, 29th at 6:30 p.m. It's a full body hit. On Tuesday, July 9th, 16th, 23rd, 30th at 7 p.m. We're having jamming in July. And on Thursdays, we're having July 11th, 18th, 25th at 6:30. We are having yoga for adults. And basically, that is my report. If you have anything that I need to cover or.
Councilwoman McGrath.
Thank you. Just can you elaborate? And I may have missed a step because I was on vacation. What is this light and where is it? The handicap light?
There you may know more. It's off of Lakeside in Bloomfield Avenue. It's a handicap light, or I would say a button that speaks.
Oh.
And one of the things
Address the issue with the visually impaired.
Visually. Oh, so it's an improvement for visually impaired.
Yes.
Okay, great.
So that's going to be done. And then on Pease and Lakeside,
Yes.
there's going to be another one for the crosswalk.
Great.
Since you have a purchase, hopefully people will use your parking lot.
I thank you for that. That's
Just thank me, thank the engineer. But
you brought it. Our manager brought it. The engineering department, since Mr. Yarko took over, has been very in partnership with the town, very responsive, and your assistance helps them a lot. So that will make a big difference in stopping other issues from happening.
And I agree with you. I have a wonderful relationship with all the council people and the administration. And I enjoy coming. Like
We can fix that.
I was at a golf outing and I could have stayed there, but I know this is my responsibility and I enjoy coming and saying hello.
We're happy to have you here, Jay.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. What I left off is that Assemblyman Barless's office did reach out to confirm that our $700,000 open space money in state and our $750,000 for Everett Field was included in the final budget. So that is very exciting for Verona. It's about $500,000 that the state is providing. It's one of the most significant budget allocations I think Verona has received. We have a couple appointments, mayor's appointments up this evening. Both of our alternates for the Board of Adjustment are, their terms have expired. So at this time, I'm reappointing Dr. Edith Reese as alternate number 1 and Mr. Michael Tully as alternate number 2. Dr. Reese already made a great impact on board with wonderful questions, and Tully brings his experience as an architect to the zoning board. The Environmental Commission, the current members requested reappointment. Jessica Pearson, Fawad Dahan, and Adam Bulger, and the commission picks its chairperson. They had a selection, and Ms. Jessica Pearson will be continuing as chairperson. The commission also picks a vice chairperson, Sean Barlow, as well, but it's not something we have to include on the agenda. The Environmental Commission is a working commission. They do a lot of work, including site plan review and cleanups and community programs, and are dialed into the needs of our township and make recommendations on legislation that we often follow. And I'd especially like to thank Ms. Pearson for all her work in that area. It's a consuming position, and I'm glad that she has agreed to serve in that role again. At this point, I will turn it over to the township manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, the items on my agenda there have asterisks of the ones I'll be reviewing unless the council has any other item we want to touch on. The townwide community meeting on the emergency services complex was on the 26th. As with all of the other meetings we had, public comment and recommendations we take back and start tweaking them. but I will need a closed session for tonight based on some developments that have happened over the recent weekend. Kevin and I have met with one of the two fundraising firms. One we ranked as number one, discussed the modifications to their proposal relative to cost and the spreading of the cost. They're taking it back to their corporate headquarters, and we'll be meeting with them again. Sponsorship policy, I did touch base with them on that for input on value of naming of buildings, naming of rooms, naming whatever, and helping drafting the policy that would be given to Brian. He'll be at the meeting. Hopefully when we get to that stage also, so we can finalize that policy. Item 9, the interlocal health services contract that is on your agenda for discussion. We can go into closed session again if you like, and then we would have to come out and take action. Item 11, interlocal agreement with Cedar Grove Senior Transportation. I'm gonna have to go into close because that's not got contract negotiations, and that will be quick and close. I know I see the eyebrows being raised about all the closed session items, but I'm sorry, it is essential. Kevin and I were up with the town engineer on pickleball at Colwell College, reviewing the court that they had discussion over, and we reviewed a gym for the potential agreements with the use of a gym at Colwell College for your recreation programs, which are expanding and getting bigger. So those are in preliminary discussions, and we'll keep you posted as they develop or not develop. Those are all the items I have highlighted, and Kevin, the deputy manager, will provide you update on all our projects that are in motion.
I just have one item for Mr. Yarko. We discussed this. The township had the open meeting for the public safety building this Wednesday. One of the pieces of feedback that I got that I passed along to Mr. Yarko, there's a slide that was new to the council. I didn't see it. That spoke about the tax impact, which represented it as a $5 decrease or increase. And several members of the public were asking about that. The assumptions, I just wanted to clarify with this. The assumptions are of that number are that $20 million would be raised from external sources. And then the second assumption is that no other capital would be added. So I did ask Mr. Diarco, and he promised to provide this to provide a forecast with additional capital being spent in that fund, because I think we need to provide that to the taxpayer. We've used outside firms to help us with this before. Larcy Associates, I still think we have a good relationship with them. Might be someone we can help, but it would be helpful to have a reasonable projection of the costs based on all the other capital that we have to potentially extend in the future on average or something like that. But Mr. Yarko promised to get that, but I know a lot of the public were interested in that. Councilman McGrath?
Yes, I want to agree with that. And I was not pleased that several financial slides were in this presentation and were not only not provided to the council in advance, but really that conversation should have happened here first. It is our responsibility, as the mayor is saying, we have to really kick the tires and understand the assumptions. And I do also agree that I would feel, I think it's required that we have an outside firm kind of weighing in on the financials. And I do have a lot of questions on the fundraising firm. The last time we talked about in closed session, the fundraising concept, Mr. Aloy, our attorney, was not here. I would like to ask some questions in closed session that relate more to legal issues. It just wasn't great process, to be honest, that we did not have the financial conversation at a council meeting first. So I was, personally, I was a little disappointed in that. And I also got a lot of feedback. So I welcome additional information being sent, but this should be an agenda topic at some point in the future. But I understand that there's something that you're alluding to. So we'll have that conversation closed and we'll see when the appropriation is. I think it's important to test the extremes, to say, what do we think may happen, but what is a best case? What is a worst case? We need to be realistic because we all, will be living with the consequences of these decisions for a very long time. So that's my personal feedback. I think, I heard that you were on News 12 News and that definitely got wide publicity and,
Get that over to me.
yes. So my parents were like, I saw your town manager on the news. And I was like, that's great. Yeah, that piece was, wasn't, I think, best practice for us. So.
If I may, Mayor, the 5 meetings, as they were evolving, many questions came up from the public. We went back to the drawing board to continuously adjust and change things that were doable to meet what the public was expressing, and a lot of it was genuine and doable. The cost came up, what the eventual cost is, and we used and up till the night of the meeting, because we knew it was going to come up again, and I can't have special meetings just to brief the council on what. I think the council was aware of the high number and what I estimated be a realistic number that it would come in, given the market, given what's happened with our projects. So I wanted to give the public the sticker shot on the worst scenario that was possible, and we put the numbers together as best as possible. We regroup after every meeting the next morning to address those things that came up during meetings. And before the phone call that I received from the mayor, we had already contacted bonds counsel so that we have our bond counsel weighing in based on all of the projects that we have out there, the retirement of debt, getting a better handle on what we need to get to you. You haven't kicked the tires yet because it wasn't ready to get to you yet. And the public knew that, per se. I couldn't have the mayor and council at those meetings because they were all meetings to get this prepared for you. You're the last say, and I did indicate to the public at maybe the 3rd meeting, I think the 3rd or 4th meeting, that the policy decisions are the mayor and council. The major thrust was for the public, and I think the message did get across that it's in project that we can't kick down the road anymore, that it's essential to repair all these buildings and move to new facilities. That every meeting we had, the entire public, including the last meeting, said, we understand it has to be done.
Yeah.
So what the next step is literally where we're at. There were new developments that I have to go in closed session with you, and hopefully you will get all of that. It'll be, my recommendation to you would be, which I was going to say anyway, is that it'll be a meeting just for this project. I don't think you'd have enough time to mix this in a regular meeting, all the business that you do, and we'll have a special meeting for that point in time, because you may need a bigger forum, the community center or whatever, so everybody can be there. But you've had a lot of public at the meetings, and we've addressed a lot of concerns of the public, not all of them, and it's not going to be perfect, but at least we're listening to them. We're making changes. We changed the look of the building also. Gathered that from this meeting, the contemporary look was not going over big, except the flat roof style we needed for solar. And we'll be looking at all those other issues that you need answers to. Yeah, but your turn is coming.
Okay.
Well, we'll look forward to that. Deputy Mayor?
Just a comment on that. I will say, Joe, the number that you were given was not surprising because you were close to what you discussed with us at prior closed session. So my question is, have we had any, I know we have a discussion for this evening on the C2 zone. Have we have any other progress moving forward with our zoning ordinance? Any discussion with our planner?
Maybe you got a draft on that. Did we get a draft?
Yeah, we've got a draft this afternoon.
This afternoon.
5:18.
Oh, okay. Look forward to getting it.
All right, thank you.
Just reading for the plan.
And then Sam will be coming in next council meeting, discuss it and review it.
Excellent. Okay. Mr. O'Sullivan, I believe you are up.
There have been some audio adjustments to the room, but I think my audio can be picked up from my seat.
There's a report of an echo. I think that's from the changes being made. So if people are hearing at home, there were some tech changes that were just made. The folks on this were getting a little bit of an echo. So, maybe run out. Kevin, when you're done, if you might run out of the hallway and log in to see. Sure. That would be helpful. But for now, let's hear all the good news from the deputy manager.
All right. The pool rate study and the pool strategic plan continues to proceed forward. It will be presented to the council season. There are a number of updates on wastewater infrastructure. The town will be moving into a smoke testing program on or about the week of July 15th. We've started pushing out public education through our public information officer. We would be starting in the Afterglow neighborhood. It will take approximately 3 months, and the contractor will be providing door hangers on each of the streets and neighborhoods as they move into those neighborhoods 24 and 48 hours prior to the work beginning. The next projects that will be coming up are the primary clarifier pumping station improvements. We're still waiting on approval from iBank to advertise that. And for the next two big projects at the wastewater plant are the upgrades to the UV disinfection system and the micro screens project. We are preparing RFQs for the design work, and we'll be advancing into that later this summer and into the fall. Moving on, the drinking well projects continue to move forward. Lynn Drive well construction has accelerated. There was a lot more activity on site this morning, and will continue through the rest of the summer. That project remains on schedule for the well to be turned on at the end of the end of the year. The Fairview Avenue well Green Acres conversion application is getting ready for submission. The public comment period has closed. And once we receive approval on the diversion application, the project will be put out to bid for construction. The township also continues to work with our special counsel on the PFAS class litigations against 3M, DuPont, Tyco, and BASF. We remain class members in each of these settlements. And the last drinking water item is the Claridge Drive pumping station. The construction permits were issued on June 6th by Bureau of Water Engineering. Township is awaiting comments from the iBank to advance the project into bidding and construction. We have a lot of projects that are queued up and ready for bidding upon final approval from the iBank. Moving into stormwater items, we continue to have an open dialogue with Blue Acres, the DP's Blue Acres office. They remained in contact with 3 different property owners along the Peckman who have expressed interest in their program. And we continue to work with the DEP on the Peckman River Channel Stabilization Project. That is in the immediate vicinity of Bloomfield Avenue. We received a construction permit, which required some modifications to design and resubmission. There was a conditional permit. We are waiting for the final approval back from DEP at this point. Continuing on the Peckman River, there was an area of the Peckman near the dead end of Brookside Avenue, which is under investigation. There's an outfall pipe that's severely rotted, and there's some erosion in the area, so we're continuing to investigate. There may be emergency repairs that are necessary, so we will have more report at the next meeting on that. Moving on to the parking meter and meters and parking meter rates. 3 new parking meters are scheduled to be installed in approximately 2 weeks. The areas have been prepped, and the old meters are being they were delivered to the manufacturer. They're being programmed currently, and they're being scheduled for installation in approximately 2 weeks. The revenues for parking and the EV charging stations continue to come in strong over the past several months. Moving on to a couple of the energy initiatives, the local government energy audit continues to move forward with site visits. There is one more site visit at the wastewater treatment plant that needs to be completed. It's a multi-day visit, but they are continuing to move forward, and they are expecting a final presentation with recommendations to be scheduled later this summer. And we also continue to work with our solar feasibility consultant. They are performing a study on all the municipal complexes and properties, and they are anticipating to present their findings to the council when that is ready. They have been going back and forth. The next meeting that they have is with PSE&G to understand and coordinate their study with some of the local and state initiatives and programs. Moving on, it's the community center playground project. That project picked up on construction today as well. The site work will continue for the next 3 to 4 weeks and move into delivery and installation of the play equipment. At that point, we will have a better handle on when the ADA restroom will be delivered, and we will determine if we can make a phased playground opening to the playground equipment and exercise equipment, or if we are close enough to the delivery and installation of the restroom facility as well. But that will be an active construction site over the next few weeks. For a number of the road repaving projects, we did submit our DOT grant application based on the resolution approved at the last meeting. That was for repaving of Dodd Terrace, Afterglow Way, and Summit Road. Those are the 3 lowest rated roads on the road assessment study. With Linden Avenue, we continue to work with the Complete Streets Technical Assistance Team. They are going to be preparing temporary demonstrations in the fall of this year for Linden Avenue, and we'll take what we learned from those temporary demonstrations and build those into a final design for road repaving spring of 2025. Douglas Place continues to move forward. All of the site work other than milling and paving has been completed. That's being scheduled for the 2nd or 3rd week of July, and notices will go out to residents as we get closer to the final milling and paving date. That should take potentially only 1 day to mill and pave the street, but it may take up to 2 days. Boston, Whitney, and Windermere is complete with construction. The last remaining item is the planting of trees. We've received some feedback from residents. At this point, we've gotten into non-optimal season for planting trees, so we're going to schedule planting the trees in September, October. And similarly, Derwent Avenue is also complete in its construction, and we are working through final punch list of Derwent Avenue. Everett Field is continuing to move forward. We have continued conversations with a number of community members who are interested in donating goods, services, and construction services for reducing the total project cost. The target is to present to the council at the August 8th meeting with current version of the concept plan and what the financials of that project look like based upon the grants received and the promised donations for that project. That will include presentation on plan view of the concept plan for the field and some architectural plan views of what the snack bar and the restroom would look like, including the cost breakdowns. The pickleball court project is also working its way forward as well. We've had some successful meetings with the pickleball community. The plans have been forwarded to the Recreation Advisory Committee, and we will present those final concept plans on the pickleball courts to the mayor and council. We're targeting actually the next mayor and council meeting, and that project should be ready for bidding late summer and fall with a winter construction period, and the final surfacing course will be constructed in the spring as weather permits. We continue to work with the 5-member green team that was awarded to the township from PSE&G's Institute of Sustainable Studies. They are continuing to study Centennial Field and the ideas of artificial turf versus natural grass, and they will be presenting at the August 5th meeting as well, in addition to the other field discussion. August 8th.
August 5th.
August 5th.
5th is a Monday, yeah.
Okay.
That one is correct.
Continuing with the Lakeside Avenue parking lot discussion, We discussed this at the last meetings. The grant application to the NJEPA has been submitted. That's for funding up to 80% of the acquisition cost. There is a bond ordinance that has been drafted accordingly for the acquisition costs, the improvement costs, and 10% contingency, which is on the agenda tonight for consideration, possible instruction by the council. The technology of the council chambers is another topic that we've been working on. We did hold a meeting with Comcast on June 25th to negotiate technology needs with the township. That includes townwide needs, and but specifically, we did spend time discussing the needs in the council chambers. Financial and technical components are being negotiated and being coordinated with special counsel, and we can present those to mayor and council as details come into focus. And another item that we've spoken on previous meetings is around for affordable housing. The township's affordable housing planner is working to complete their vacant land analysis for the township. We're going to be meeting with them in preparation of the next round of affordable housing milestones that are coming up, and we will report back to the council. And then lastly is the Bloomfield Avenue Streetscape project. We did discuss with the council at the last meeting, and we are preparing RFQs for submission of planners and designers to apply for design of Bloomfield Avenue downtown.
Great.
Thanks, Mr. Sullivan. Before I ask questions, I'm going to ask a question. It feels very warm.
It does seem very warm in here.
Might we adjust the?
I'm trying, it's not working. We've had this problem today.
Okay, well, we're gonna make this a shorter meeting. And without insulting the public, I'm gonna take my jacket off. I'm sorry, everybody.
Mr. Sullivan, can you actually, under 18, the congressionally directed spending, can you just touch on that update on progress with Booker's?
Sure. There was an application submitted for congressionally directed spending for the emergency services building. The request was for $6 million for that emergency services building. Senator Booker's office has approved and advanced Verona's request to the subcommittee level. It is the first hurdle of many to clear for that funding to come through, but it is an important first hurdle to have clear. So it is good news that it has advanced to the subcommittee level. And at this point, the subcommittees will be reviewing all of the projects that have been presented to them and hopefully funded through a congressional bill at some point.
And does the subcommittee have a name? Like, what is it, a subcommittee of something? Or if you don't have that answer on hand, could you email us?
There are a couple of different ones that.
Right.
It was advanced to two different subcommittee levels. I can get you which.
That would be great. I would love to do that. Thanks.
Okay, number 16 on affordable housing. Do we know how far off we are in the vacant land analysis? Because we've been talking about it for quite a while.
We actually have a meeting with our affordable housing planner tomorrow, so we can provide an update.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Sullivan, I know there have been some questions about sycamore trees, decent West Lincoln, and we had forwarded some public concerns there. Can you touch on that as interest?
Sure. The Township Public Works, Shade Tree Commission, and the Township's arborist and tree contractor have been working pretty busily over the past 4 to 8 weeks. There was an award contract provided to Do Jets as our new tree contractor throughout the township. They were provided a pretty long list of dead trees which required removal as priority work. They've been working through that over the past 2 to 3 weeks at this point. They are nearly complete with the removal of those dead trees. They're anticipating to jump into tree trimming work. They have had I have had some conversations with residents on the East Lincoln and West Lincoln streets, in which we discussed the plan to continue to investigate the existing trees on those streets with our arborist and in coordination with our tree contractor to determine the best path forward for addressing any needs on those streets, whether they be through trees or if there are sidewalk issues. We'll be taking a holistic review of that. I do believe that the arborist is scheduled to be back on those streets either tomorrow or the following day. The tree contractor is scheduled to be out there and begin some form of work, whether it's tree trimming or otherwise, but they are scheduled to begin that work as early as next week. As I said, they caught up on their tree removal list, but they will be moving into that next round of tree work.
That's results. Thank you, gentlemen of the administration. We're going to move on to council member reports. Deputy Mayor Mack.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Be kind of brief. Once again, congratulations to the Verona High School graduating class and all the other graduating classes in Verona over the last month. I won't get into specific groups because the mayor named them all, but the fireworks display was beautiful again this year. I did get a couple people asking about music during the fireworks, so next year we'll fix that. But it was a wonderful display. Historic preservation, they are looking into moving the freight shed that's at the top of Personette. The chair actually asked me, I will be contacting the manager and deputy manager this week to set up a meeting and discuss this with the chair. So probably maybe Wednesday morning, I will try to get together with her and figure out a schedule. But they're looking to, it's one of the historic designations in the town of Verona. I did actually contact the Hilltop Conservancy, the gentleman that emailed all of us about the ropes course and all the debris and stuff that was left behind. I went up there and looked at it last week, and then I met him on Saturday. Was it Saturday? Yes, Saturday. And by the time we got up there, our Public Works already went up and cleaned the whole area out. So I would like to thank the Public Works for getting on that right away. And I'm sure it came through the management. So thank you very much. Chris was very surprised and very happy when he walked up there and saw it all down. I do have something else I will be discussing at the end of the week with you also about that area. And lastly, yes. On July 18th, the Chamber of Commerce is going to have a meet and greet at the Verona Inn at 6 p.m. for anybody in Verona who owns a business and would like to come and talk to the Verona Chamber of Commerce. We're actually doing a big push for membership, and we will be going into every store in the next 2 or 3 weeks and trying to contact businesses that are out of homes throughout Verona. But if you know anybody who has a business and would like to join the chamber, please reach out to them and let them know that July 18th at 6 p.m. we will be having a meeting. And that is all I have for saying.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
At the risk of being repetitive, also congratulations to all of our Verona High School graduates, and thank you to everyone who who put together the ceremony. And a big thank you to everyone who worked on the Verona fireworks. It's always an amazing show, this year being no exception. So thank you for that. And with regards to the AV system, my comments are into Mr. O'Sullivan. Largely, the designs are pretty solid. I just put some practical concerns, principally related to the community center and how the system will be, used in the ordinary course of meetings. So I appreciate the time you've working on that.
Thank you. Thank you for your time on that. Councilman Miller.
Thank you. I too was honored to be at the graduation ceremony for our high school students. Congratulations to all of them. Unfortunately, I missed the fireworks. I was recovering from jet lag and I was asleep, but it was a gorgeous night and I really was upset that I missed them. But I will look forward to them next year. The Multicultural Inclusion and Accessibility Advisory Committee met last week. They talked about plans to raise awareness on Disability Pride Month. In fact, as I was stepping into this meeting, I saw some news art, new graphics on social media. They're going to have one graphic a week to raise awareness on disabilities, the individuals living with disabilities. They also elected a new chairwoman, Roxana Tirado, and the secretary remains Michelle O'Neill, who's up for reappointment tonight. I want to give a huge thank you to Michelle Grouet for her leadership. She was the first chairwoman of this committee. She led it while it was in the interim phases, and now as it's official. She was a tremendous leader for this committee. And I so appreciate her volunteerism. She is staying on the committee, which is wonderful. And I look forward to working with Roxana in the future. The Shade Tree Committee has a meeting on Monday where I think we're going to be talking at length about East Lincoln and about the shade tree that came down today on Gertie's. Neighborhood Traffic and Safety is meeting next week, also on Tuesday at 7:30, I believe. Both of these they meet on Zoom, and we have a lot to discuss, as Mr. Coltre already alluded to, and some meetings that took place. In new business, I do want to add two topics, Mayor. One is I do want to revisit the moving the election to from May to November. And also I have a follow-up question for you on the New Jersey budget allocation process that you talked about in your report. And that's my report. Thank you.
All right, and Councilman Holland.
Thank you. So again, congratulations to the class of 2024. Whether you be the high school, or your universities, or middle school, or elementary school. I had an elementary school graduate from Forest Avenue. So we no longer have any kids in elementary school in the Holland household. So it was a big milestone for us. And I know it's a major accomplishment for the kids and for families and everyone. So I hope everybody was able to celebrate and be healthy doing so. I am the liaison to the Flood Advisory Committee, but we had to cancel our meeting and it will be rescheduled. I know that that was just reported in Mr. O'Sullivan's report. So I do not have an update there. I will say that I have heard from multiple residents regarding developments in West Orange. So I do want to thank the administration for being very responsive to those residents' concerns and taking an active engagement there. I likewise want to wish everyone a happy 4th of July and say that we very much enjoyed the 4th of July fireworks and enjoy living in Essex County, where you can essentially see fireworks every night up until the 4th of July. So it actually becomes kind of a fun celebration around this time of year. So I hope everybody has a happy and healthy Independence Day. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. I think my dog would disagree with you on the repetitive fireworks thing, but it certainly is beautiful. Okay, at this time, as is our custom, I'm going to open for public comment on any matter by any individual. Madam Clerk, would you please read the public participation statement?
Anyone from the public wishing to speak on any matter, please raise your hand. If you are attending via Zoom, you may raise your hand by pressing the raise hand button on your monitor. If you're dialing in by phone, press *9. Once you're recognized, clearly state only your name and township of residence for the record. You're not required to provide your street address. However, if you do, please note that these meetings will be posted on the township's YouTube channel, and addresses will not be redacted for any purpose. We'll have 4 minutes to address the council. There'll be no cross dialogue during this time. And after everyone wishing to speak has been heard, the council may address your comments and/or questions.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there any in the count chamber session? Please come on.
Good evening, everybody. I'm here to speak on.
Just say your name for us.
My name is John Dell.
Okay.
I live at 28 East Lincoln.
I live in Verona, Mr.
I live in
Right?
Verona.
Okay, then you're good.
I'm a lifelong resident, from OLL to F.M. Brown to HB to Verona High School class of 92. I'm speaking on behalf of my neighborhood. It's been brought up several times in this meeting, which I do appreciate, about the tree issue on East and West Lincoln. We know on our block that is a townwide issue, but we feel sort of a little bit of a heavy heart due to the recent tragedy that happened on our block. So as all the parents in here can sort of understand, most of the parents in our neighborhood are extremely nervous to send our kids outside on the block to play, especially after rainstorms and windstorms. So I guess I'm just here with a heavy heart asking, as a Verona resident, just to sort of, like I said, I don't want to take away from any other part of town. I'm just speaking for mine, that it's different on my block now. I'm a block that was happy with kids running around, playing with each other does not happen anymore. And it's kind of sad. My kids are a little bit older, so they're technically not part of the little guys running around, but it is definitely, your heart gets racing when you see the kids out and about, especially, recently, just the other night, a branch fell off a tree in front of my very own house. That was in front of my house. I don't know if you all, saw that tree. But that was a tree that I was told was a healthy tree, by the arborist. And when that branch fell, it was hollowed out. So it's just, I've never been to one of these in the 50 years that I've lived here because I trust Verona. I believe Martin White. But when something like that happens, I felt the need to come tonight. So I guess I'm just asking for, I don't want to take away from any other neighborhood, but I'm just asking to sort of take a heavy look at the trees in our neighborhood in front of my house, just to sort of be able to put that neighborhood back to the fun, sort of kid-friendly, Verona neighborhood that I know it to be. For those of you who do know that my family has been in this town for a really long time. I mean, I think it would be hard pressed to say that if you had lists of people that have contributed voluntarily to this town, my mom would probably be in the top 10, if not the top 5. And we've never sort of asked for anything. It's just kind of who we are. We love this town, but I'm standing here today sort of asking just to sort of, again, I don't want to prioritize my neighborhood over anyone else's, but in recent, with the recent events that happened on my block, I would just say maybe take a little harder look with the arborist or whoever, just not just trimming trees, but some of those sycamore trees that, trust me, the amount of research that has been done in sycamore trees by my neighbors is pretty extensive. So the arborist is going to have their handful asking, answering questions to people who really now understand the process of how those trees grow and what they look like and over time. So, I'm just here with a heavy heart, just sort of asking sort of you all just to sort of take a look at those trees on East and West Lincoln with a heavy heart, knowing what just happened to one of our neighbors, and just sort of hopefully my neighborhood gets back to the neighborhood it was prior to the beginning of the year. Thank you.
Any other public comments? Come on up.
Good evening. My name is Brandon Thibodeau. I too live on East Lincoln. I've been a resident of Verona for 7 years. I've got with my wife and my 2 children who are on Forest Avenue. And I too am here tonight to request immediate action regarding these sycamore trees that are on our block. When my wife and I moved here 7 years ago, one of the main attractions for us was the tree line. We thought it was beautiful. We really liked it. However, recent incidents involving these trees have highlighted an urgent need for their, we believe, removal. As John had just mentioned, last week we did have a large branch come down. What he failed to mention was that there was one of our neighbor's children was dropped off, that we have it on a Ring camera 30 seconds before that branch came down. It was a real narrow miss. And to be honest, my neighbors and I have a hard time leaving the house without looking up and constantly looking out for our kids. And we're really getting to the point where our patience is running a bit thin. I have exchanged some emails with Mr. O'Sullivan, and I appreciate the prompts that you guys are doing right now, the actions that you are taking to find a new service and allocate funds. And it is great to hear that we're going to have somebody out there, hopefully this week. We look forward to seeing that individual on the block. I think that'll put a lot of people a bit more at ease. But one of the things that I do want to request is that with this arborist that they be involved with the neighborhood. We don't want a person to come in the night and be gone and us not have the opportunity to speak with these people and have them show, or have us show them where we see dead branches. And we would also like if there could be not only contact with us, but also when there is a plan that's in place, that plan is shared with our block and the reasons why decisions were made. Again, in my opinion and the opinion of most of my neighbors, is that we feel that that trimming is probably not sufficient. We would ideally like to see them removed and not to have no trees there. We obviously love the trees I mentioned in the beginning, but we would like to see something that's a little bit more appropriate for the size of our properties. We're all pretty close to each other on that particular block, and we're not very far removed from the street. So in closing, our community, we feel like, deserves a safe environment. And we just honestly cannot tolerate looking up every time we leave our homes in fear that something is going to fall on ourselves or our family members. If we feel it's the town's responsibility to address these hazards without delay, and we're hoping that there's going to be some swift action on this before, God forbid, any other serious incidents occur. So thank you for your time, and we look forward to hearing from you guys about what we're going to do. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Nobody left the room. Anybody on Zoom? Mr. Ryan?
1 second, because
Give us 1 second, Kevin. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Kevin Ryan, a resident of Verona.
Kevin, give us 1 second.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Ryan.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I just wanted to say I did attend the meeting the other night about the public safety building. I was very heartened to see the large number of people that attended the meeting. From a personal perspective, I think it was very constructive. Gave a lot of information to folks, and I was wondering if we intend on putting that meeting up on the on YouTube or on the town website, along with access to some of the slides that Mr. Messinio used. If I could get an answer to that question, and then on a second point, on maybe a little bit of a lighter note, my wife attended a discussion that Bob Williams, our unofficial town historian, gave in Verona Park about an early death that occurred back in the 1890s. But during the course of the conversation, it has come up that he has a number of artifacts that he'd like to turn over to the town, and maybe the deputy mayor, as the liaison, can address this. We've never had enough storage space for him. I can tell you that from the time that I was on the council. So while we're in the process of rearranging or maybe building new facilities, I'd just like to make a pitch to the town administration to keep that in mind, that he does have a treasure trove of Verona history, so that if at some point in the future, I realize space is very tight now, but at least we keep that in mind, that we could maybe come up with some type of a historical preservation room in one of the new facilities, or in one of the old facilities when space becomes available. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. This time I will close all comments. I thank Mr. Odell and Mr. Thibodeau for coming out this evening, and I'm sure Mr. O'Sullivan will be in contact with them and working with them and helping the arborist understand the issues over there as well. But I appreciate your advocacy for your neighborhood. To Mr. Ryan, I think your idea on the historical preservation room is a good one. So as we find space, I've spoken to Mr. Williams a couple times, and he does have a substantial collection of Verona related things. Almost everything in the Verona library was his at one point, or is his. And I look forward to potentially working with him on that as well. And that's all my comments. Anybody else? Councilman McGrath?
Thank you. I will take these comments from individuals on East and West Lincoln and bring that back to the Shade Tree Committee They are meeting at the community center on Monday at 5 p.m. So residents are encouraged to attend. They can express those same and similar views, and I'm sure they will be talking about the situation. And I want to thank the Shade Tree Commission, for, their expertise and also being part of this process. And, we've talked for many years on the council that, their tree maintenance is very serious and expensive. And the sooner the Shade Tree Commission is working towards, a strategic analysis and plan. And I think we're getting on the right track because we have to do a lot of tree maintenance across the entire town. So, and again, a tree fell in Gertie's, and, we have a lot to do there. So when we talk about what capital is needed in the future, we can't forget that shade tree management is a big thing.
On the public comment, Secretary.
Just comment on, I'm going to thank Johnny O and Brandon for coming tonight. Obviously, this town was devastated with what happened, and I know from other areas of town too, we should focus. These sycamores are on a couple other streets throughout Verona, so we should also look at those streets and keep an eye on them. When I was liaison to the Shade Tree Commission, we tried getting maintenance done. And I remember back then the chair actually had a research paper on it. And it's actually, when you deal with emergencies, the cost of dealing with emergencies, it really isn't that expensive to do tree maintenance in the long run, because your emergencies cost so much that if you did a little bit of maintenance from time to time, then it kind of balances out. So we should seriously, I know we've been moving towards that, and we put some money aside in this budget. So I'm glad to see that happen in finally. But hopefully we can, get through a lot of the neighborhoods in Verona that need. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the ordinance on second reading. Madam Clerk, would you please read the title of ordinance number 2024-26 into the record?
An ordinance amending chapter 140, article 12 of the Code of the Township of Verona, specifically section 10, stop intersections, section 1, no parking, and section 2, no parking certain hours.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Would somebody please move the ordinance?
So moved.
Motion is made by the Deputy Mayor, the seconds by Councilman McGrath. Now it's time for the public hearing on ordinance 2024-26. Same public comment statement applies, except that comments may only be on this ordinance. Maybe there's nobody in the room. Anybody? Awesome. Hearing none, I will close public comment and council discussion.
For this quick comment, I am happy to pass this ordinance, putting a stop sign at the bottom of Claremont and Cumberland. I've seen accidents there. I've actually with the mayor one time walking on that corner, and there was an accident. So I think a lot of the businesses in the area are going to be very happy with this. My question is, how long before we put the stop sign up? Is 20 days?
Yeah, sure. The chief said that it's ready to go.
Okay.
We have to wait 20 days from today.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And that is an intersection that does have a high incidence of motor vehicle accidents. Okay. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Councilwoman Holland,
Yes.
Councilwoman McGrath,
Yes.
Councilman Roman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McAvoy,
Yes.
Mayor Tamboro.
Yes.
Mayor, ordinance 2024-26 passes, vote 5-0, would be published according to law.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The next item on the agenda is ordinance H1 on first reading. Madam Clerk, would you please read the title of this ordinance into the record?
A bond ordinance providing for the acquisition and improvement of the parking lot located at 46 Lakeside Avenue in and by the Township of Verona in the County of Essex, New Jersey, appropriating $2,250,000 therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $2,142,000 bonds or notes of the township to finance part of the cost thereof.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Would somebody move the ordinance, please? Motion is made by Councilman Roman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second is made by Councilman McGrath. Is there a council discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Councilwoman Holland,
Yes.
Councilwoman McGrath.
Yeah.
Councilman Roman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McAvoy,
Yes.
Mayor Tamboro.
Yes.
Mayor, ordinance H1 will be number 2024-27. It will be published according to law. And a public hearing will be held at our next meeting, which may be July 22nd.
Thank you.
This,
We haven't approved the date
Oh.
officially yet. Oh, we're not leaving it out for guesswork. All right, on the consent agenda, we have two sets of minutes. There's a correction that the June 26th will be June 17th. And we have K1 through K7 on our resolutions. We have no licenses or permits this evening. Would somebody move the consent agenda? So moved. Motion's made by Councilman Roman. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second's made by the deputy mayor. This time I'll call for public comment. The consent agenda only, the same public comment statement apply. Hearing none, I will close public comment. I have one item on K3, Madam Clerk. The holiday decor mentions Montana sewer lines, so unless we're being very festive with the sewer, that's just a typo, but just want to make sure you caught that one. Councilman McGrath.
yes. So we went so quickly. Just for the public edification, though, I think we should explain the resolution on Montclair Health.
Mr. Yarko.
Yes, in review the contracts and the expiration of the contract and we've been discussing with the Bloomfield Health Department, which is also jointly with the county health officer and staff, and the cost savings in both contracts. Montclair is a 5% a year increase, and Bloomfield County will be 2% a year. We end up getting the Bloomfield Health Department and all its services, and the county health officer and their staff, because the county provides the health officer to Bloomfield. So all around, you're getting both departments for a more competitive rate and more comprehensive service. We've been receiving a lot from the county already. So again, strongly recommend we do this. And it is I think there was a question at the last meeting. I apologize. There was a question about contiguous communities. That doesn't apply any longer. That was reviewed, and there is no prohibition relative to the distance between Verona and Bloomfield. And I apologize for the voice to the public. I lose it by the end of the night.
Thank you. Any other comments? Deputy Mayor?
Question, on K2, do we know when that's going to take place for the appraisal?
Yeah, we're under orders now. I didn't bring those sheets with me, but we have to start. Directives getting the county ready.
Everybody's hoping they're the 1/3 that his taxes go down.
Yeah.
Councilman McGrath.
Yes, I'm sorry. I just wanted to make a note that on the meeting minutes, Ms. Kiernan made some adjustments that I noticed that recusals or abstention votes from our last meeting were not accurately reflected. So they are now going to be reflected in the June 26th.
Thank you, Madam Councilman. All right. At this time, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Councilwoman Holland,
Yes.
Councilwoman McGrath,
Yes.
Councilman Roman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McAvoy,
Yes.
Mayor Tamburo.
Yes.
Mayor, resolutions K1 through K7 will be numbered 119 through and including 125.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We do not have an addendum this evening. Our first item of new business is appointments for boards and committees. I'm just going to go through these by letter, and we can just make a motion vote on each one. The first is Board of Adjustment, this is for a regular member, which the council appoints, Genevieve Murphy Braddocks, who is asking to be re-upped. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion to approve Ms. Braddocks is made by
Second.
the deputy mayor. The second is by Councilman McGrath. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? I'm sorry. Well, we'll do a roll call. Go ahead.
Councilwoman Holland,
Yes.
Councilwoman McGrath,
Yes.
Councilman Roman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McAvoy,
Yes.
Mayor Tamburo.
Yes.
Mayor, appointment passes 5-0.
Next item is the Environmental Commission. We have Mr. Adam Bolger, who would like to continue as an alternate. The other position remains open, so if anybody is interested in serving on the Environmental Commission, please fill out the application on the township website. Would somebody move Mr. Bolger's appointment?
So moved.
Motion is made by Councilman Roman. Is there a second? I'll second it. Any discussion? Madam Clerk?
Councilwoman Holland,
Yes.
Councilwoman McGrath,
Yes.
Councilman Roman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McAvoy,
Yes.
Mayor Tamburo,
Yes.
Mayor Mr. Bolger is appointed as alternate 1, 5-0.
All right. The next is the Green Team. We have Carrie Bass, Jamie Bjornstad Ball, and Christine Liaukis. And there's a line for chairperson. The committee has requested Carrie Bass again be their chairperson. I will move those appointments. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second's made by the deputy mayor. Any council discussion? We do need more people for the Green Team. Verona. I think all of us should try to find someone. They may not be able to make a quorum at this point, so we need to do that. Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Councilwoman Holland,
Yes.
Councilwoman McGrath,
Yes.
Councilman Roman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McAvoy,
Yes.
Mayor Tamburo.
Yes.
Mayor, motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. The Multicultural Inclusion and Accessibility Advisory Committee, we have Tova Kopan and Michelle O'Neill. We do have one unfilled role. Councilman McGrath and I had a conversation about that role, and we are going to put our heads together to find somebody there who fits a specific need for that committee. Would somebody like to move those appointments?
So moved.
Motion is made by Councilman McGrath. Is there a second? Thank you. Any discussion? All those in, we'll do the roll call again. Madam Clerk?
Councilwoman Holland,
Yes.
Councilwoman McGrath,
Yes.
Councilman Roman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McAvoy,
Yes.
Mayor Tamburo.
Yes.
Mayor, motion passes 5-0.
All right. The next one is the Municipal Alliance Committee. We have Rosanna Gianni, Rachel Klansky, and Stacy Pulio. I would also like to add Jim Day. He had put in for another committee. And speaking to Mr. Day, he was willing to accept the open position on VMAC, which would expire 6/30/25. Mr. Day is a former school board member for a long time, would be a great addition to that committee. However, in order to appoint Mr. Day to another committee that he has asked for, which is the Open Space Trust Fund Advisory Committee, there's a verbiage in our code that says that you can't hold another position or employment or whatever with the township. I asked the township attorney to opine on this. The township attorney has come up with a legal opinion that he shared with council. If you could share that, Mr. Miller.
Sure. The legal opinion is the council writes the ordinances. So these are advisory committees. So you can interpret your ordinance the way you want to. So you could actually say this counts. However, if you look at your planning ordinance actually quotes the language that's used in this particular ordinance that's in question now and says that these advisory committees will not be seen as positions, employments, and whatnot with the township. So I would recommend that you go with this saying you don't want to interpret things differently in one section of your ordinance than in the other sections. So I would recommend that the council either allow this to go through and maintain the same interpretation or change the interpretation somehow in the verbiage so that the planning board and this particular ordinance can be interpreted differently. But again, as my opinion indicated, I'd also recommend that you keep these very broad. We can get very specific with all these different committees that we start that are advisory committees and make all kinds of rules and regulations about, what district you have to live in Verona, what your employment is and make all sorts of qualifications. But I've found in my experience that tends to dissuade people from coming forward to joining the committees because they think it's very onerous or they won't get it because there's too many qualifications. So my recommendation is to keep it general, kind of the way you have it in your ordinances now. And then when you get multiple applications for one seat, you look at all of the different, I call it diversity, but diversity of not only the person, but of their education, their experiences, where they live in Verona, and you try to measure all the qualifications that you could think of that a person comes with, not just diversity of the person. And you make the decision at that point in time to apply those other attributes that you may include in an ordinance, but my recommendation is that you don't.
Thank you, Mr. Loya. I'm going to make a motion that the council interpret its code as to allow for somebody to be on two advisory committees. This question actually comes up a couple more times in this evening. Is there a second?
In your motion.
Second is by Councilman Roman. Is there any discussion? We'll just do a.
I'm sorry, I do.
Sure.
So your motion is that we would be interpreting it this way, but we're not memorializing that interpretation in any way.
We are, Mr. Aloya is going to be working on revisions to ordinance.
So as my memo indicated, the last line is next council meeting, assuming you make the decision tonight, whether it's the decision just moved or a different decision, we'll memorialize and change the ordinances accordingly, just so they're clear, whether it's an actual change in the ordinance or just clarification of the ordinance. So this issue won't come before this council or future councils will know how to deal with it.
So the motion then is to proceed with amending the ordinances.
So we can interpret it however we want in this point with this motion, and then the ordinances would be changed to reflect our interpretation, but the interpretation would apply immediately.
I would agree with that only because your ordinance does currently right now you have a legal opinion, right? But your ordinance through the planning board appointment ordinance already interprets this language. The only thing you're deciding is, yes, we want to be consistent throughout because the question was raised by the mayor. And what I'm going to do is change all the ordinances to make it very clear that you don't have to refer back to the planning board appointment ordinance to figure out whether this appointment prohibits you from being on something else.
Mhm.
Okay. Madam Clerk?
Councilwoman Holland,
Abstain.
Councilwoman McGrath,
No.
Councilman Roman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Matson,
Yes.
Mayor Tamboro.
Yes.
Mayor, motion passes 3-2.
Thank you. And Mr. Aloya, you'll prepare those for the next meeting. We have 4 members for the Traffic and Safety Committee. 2 are requesting reappointment to
For a
a.
point of order.
Yes.
We didn't make the appointments for the.
Oh, I'm
municipal
sorry.
line
Thank you,
committee.
Councilman. I will move the 4 appointments as previously stated, with Mr. Days expiring 6/30 of 25. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Woman. Any discussion?
I just want to, like, as a point there, so this, you're adding, wait, I'm sorry, are you adding Mr. Day
Yeah.
as well?
Yeah.
So we just didn't have an empty line here. That's where I was just thrown. So there was actually another opening. Just like looking at this agenda and like how the others were structured. So we have 3 people re-upping, but we actually had an opening as well.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you have 2 openings.
We have 2 openings. Okay. So I'm looking at the shared drive. So I see the opening very clearly there. I just had to catch up for a second. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Councilwoman Holland,
Yes.
Councilwoman McGrath,
Yes.
Councilman Roman.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McAvoy,
Yes.
Mayor Tamboro.
Yes.
Mayor, that motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. All right, for Neighborhood Traffic and Safety Committee, we have Abigail Tarico, Andrea Anderson, Elizabeth Hines, and Robin Wallace. Just to note, Ms. Hines and Ms. Wallace do serve on other committees, and our interpretation obviously will allow the same thing. Ms. Wallace serves on the Open Space Committee as well, and she'd be able to remain on that committee, so we can actually have a quorum. I will move these appointments. Is there a second?
Second.
Any council discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Councilwoman Holland,
Yes.
Councilwoman McGrath,
Yes.
Councilman Roman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McAvoy,
Yes.
Mayor Tamboro.
Yes.
Mayor, that motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. The next is the Open Space Trust Fund Advisory Committee. We have requesting reappointment Chris Udesa and Chris Duffy. Jen Day has also agreed to serve on that committee. And we had an application come in this afternoon for Larry Raff. Did anybody get to read that yet? We can do him in the next meeting. Okay. Our next meeting. All right.
And when does Mr. Day's term?
Days would expire 6/30 of 26.
25.
Was that? No, there's one.
The last one.
There's 3 openings, and I'm sorry, Councilwoman, there are 3 openings. One's for 2026, 2 are for 2020.
Or for 25. So Mr. Raff would be for 25 in the next meeting if we so appoint him. All right. I'll move these three appointments. Is there a second? Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Councilwoman Holland,
Yes.
Councilwoman McGrath,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor, I'm sorry, Councilman Roman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McAvoy,
Yes.
Mayor Tamboro,
Yes.
Mayor, the motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. We have two spots open on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. I'm going to move that we fill those positions with Steve Farrell, who is returning, and David Conlon, who's a new applicant. Is there a second? Second is made by Councilman Roman. Any discussion? Councilwoman McGrath.
Yes, thank you. We had discussed, and we have sort of, as part of our next part of our meeting agenda, expanding this committee from 6 to 7. And, we have a lot of qualified applicants. I mean, I do just want to say we have like amazingly
Yes.
qualified applicants across the board. And especially for this committee, we have a lot of interest, and we're trying to accomplish a lot with this committee, including diversity of age, gender, people who have young children, people who have older kids, people who don't have children. There's a lot here, and there's a lot of applicants. So we had discussed expanding, possibly we want to expand one and then maybe even higher, going from 6 to 9, keeping an odd number, but using the process that just went on with how we made a motion because we have this intent to amend. Should we do that for this? So
I
that
think
We discussed.
we're discussing that in new business.
Yeah, so I
That's
mean,
part of, that's not, and
We'll add that to the new business conversation on that one.
Yeah. So I just, again, there's a lot of qualified applicants here, so I think, this was a tough one. So I'll just leave it there.
It was. I agree with you. I did bring up moving to 9 applicants because there's a strange, there's a manager's designee, and then we have another administrator on, potentially changing that and adding. The reason I'm always cautious about expanding committees is because we often don't have enough people for quorum, like open space or whatever, for a green team. And in this case, we don't have a problem getting applicants. So that's why I suggested potentially moving to 9, and would like to discuss that in new business as we discuss that, because I can say all of the applicants that we got were very impressive, and Mr. Conlon stuck out to me due to his vast experience. But we can certainly add more people as we amend the ordinance. Councilwoman Holland.
Thank you. As liaison to the committee, I will just say that Ashley Riva and Clarissa Chavez-Mion had actually attended Recreation Advisory Committee meetings, indicating their genuine interest in participating in this committee. So I do think that there's validity in their consideration. I appreciate that you've already made a motion, and so we'll have to vote on that motion. But I do think one or both of those women are very valuable. I would agree, though, that Mr. Farrell, having served on the committee for many years and being an active participant, should be reappointed. But then the remaining vacant position could very well be filled by one of these very qualified women who are already engaged in the committee. In fact, they stayed the length of the meeting most recently, and they spoke to myself and others after the meeting and showed their interest. So while I do appreciate that Mr. Conlon has vast experience, is very impressive, if we are talking later about expanding the committee, then he would still have that opportunity to serve.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other comments?
I mean, since we're voting on this, I'm going to comment. And Mr. Farrell's been on there for quite a while, so it's in favor of him. And I looked at Mr. Conlon's resume. I know he was a coach when I was in high school. So he's been involved in sports for a very, very long time. So I just want to make sure, I saw his resume. It was far more extensive than what I thought just from the high school. So I would say I'd be in favor of this. And also, we're discussing it a lot now. We'll discuss it later, but I will be in favor of expanding that group just because of all the different areas that this group touches on. And there's a lot of people obviously playing sports in Verona. So I'll be in favor of expanding it there.
May I?
Yes.
Sorry. It's difficult to keep track of these boards and committees. There was a resignation and a non-responsive resident. There are actually 4 openings on the Park and Rec Committee right now.
Excuse me? How,
That's,
Ms. Shariko and Miss Anderson are up for reappointment.
no, that's,
no, that's.
That's
a
traffic
different
and safety.
committee.
Traffic and safety.
That's a different committee.
Oh,
Yeah, I was about to say,
that's
no,
why I'm
we only
saying
had
it so
2.
hard. No, I apologize.
Look, it is tough keeping track. of all.
It very much is. And I do just
It is.
really want to compliment you on, I know it's a lot and you had especially for Parks and Recreation, you had a tremendous amount of interest. So I do appreciate the effort that went into this.
Thank you. As I'll restate previously, I'm going to maintain my motion for the 2 candidates that I put forward. But I suggested we go to 9 members so we could add more people. I do think that Mr. Conlon adds an important viewpoint, not only as a coach, but as a retired individual and as an educator. And he would be very valuable.
Just comments just along the same lines, also in favor of the expansion, and only making the choice, based on that level of experience. But I very much appreciate that we have other members who have actively been attending the meetings, and certainly hope we can agree on expanding any running seats for them as well. So
Thank you
for
very
having
much.
that.
Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Councilwoman Holland,
Abstain.
Councilwoman McGrath,
Abstain.
Councilman Roman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Mackel,
Yes.
Mayor Tamboro.
Yes.
Mayor, the motion passes 3-0 and 2 abstentions.
The next is the Planning Board. I'm going to move that David Fresky be reappointed as a member whose term would expire in 6/30 of 28, that Julie Parker be appointed as alternate number 2, with her term expiring 6/30 of 26, and Jessica Pearson, who is the referral from the Environmental Commission, expiring at 6/30 of 27.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask, can we separate these appointments?
Sure. Because you want to separate 1 and 2 and then 3?
Well, yes, correct.
Okay. I will amend my motion to move forward with just I think that's a J, but it should be 1 and 2, Mr. Fresky and Ms. Parker. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Roman, and council discussion. Yes.
So I'm a little, I'm very disappointed that we have, the current alternate has asked to be reappointed. I understand there were some technical issues. And I have heard, and without getting into all the details, there was some concerns over, there were technical issues, some meetings were missed, but this person has indicated they want to stay on. They have a great background. They were part of the founding of Fair in the Square. They have a long history with this town. They also represent, a demographic that's not heavily represented on the planning board, which is people who have young children. And again, this is someone who has a lot of professional expertise where we're about to go into the master plan review. And, personally, I was really excited for them to add some input, and they seem to still be willing. And listen, we have a lot of issues with diversity on this committee. So, and so obviously we need to also fix those, but we only have 1 opening. We really have never had a process before where we have overlooked someone who wants to reappoint. In fact, the deputy mayor has made this point multiple times in public before. And so this is a really aggressive move. Even though, again, everyone's like really qualified, and I'm so thrilled with the applicants for this committee, and everyone would serve the community well. So I just want to make sure that's clear. So this is just this is precedent setting or precedent breaking. I don't know which direction we're going in, but I feel like we're going backwards a little bit. You just have to be really careful about when we start removing people from committees for infractions that frankly have happened in the past. And I went to look at attendance. There are no minutes posted for the planning board for ages. So I can't even decipher. And we don't have an attendance policy, which is something we're going to talk about in the future. So I feel this is, I don't think this is right. I just wanted to put that on the record.
Thank you, Councilman. I will respond to that. Number one, I don't think we overlook someone. Mr. Bernardo, I did not learn that Mr. Bernardo even wished to be reappointed on this committee until this afternoon when I spoke to Councilman McGrath. He had not responded to our municipal clerk after 3 reminders. In addition, Mr. Bernardo was not present for 3 meetings. So he actually hasn't attended a meeting since January 1st. He has not completed his state required financial disclosure form, nor has he completed the required stormwater training. I like Mr. Bernardo. I spoke to Mr. Bernardo on the phone today. He is still willing to help with provide his expertise, which he can do during open session. But at this point, we have a lot coming before the planning board. We need people who are committed to attend. And Ms. Parker has a background in environmental law, which would be quite valuable. And I don't think we're overlooking somebody or removing somebody. We're not reappointing someone. All terms expire, just like the public, of course, can not reelect us. So that is our position on that. I don't think it's an aggressive move. I think it's the right move for the town. So we actually have people at these planning board meetings who can participate. For those of you who have never served on the planning board, it's important to note that you cannot vote on an item that comes before the planning board unless you have attended all meetings related to that application, or that you have watched everything and signed a certification. But unfortunately, one of the issues with the technology that we have in that room is that even the recording of the meeting doesn't allow somebody who missed the meeting to see the presentation that is happening. So nobody really could actually sign that certification unless they match with the planner individually. So I maintain my existing motion, and I think it'll certainly add more diversity. We do have a couple members, actually several members of that committee who have children of all ages on the committee, and they actually all sit right next to each other. So and others who have had children come through the system, but I think we have a great opportunity to have somebody who's that role has expertise. Any other discussion?
Yes, I would like to say something, Mr. Mayor. Since my name was mentioned, I have in the past said that if someone's there, it should be a review of this, and this is how I said it, of their past performance and their past attendance. We just actually talked about that at the last meeting. We had someone who was the chair of one of the committees come up and mentioned that one of their people on the committee hasn't showed up in quite a while. And I did speak to that gentleman afterwards and said, if he hasn't been there, it's an unwritten rule. If you're not there for 3 meetings, then you should be thought of as, not wanting to be on the committee or the commission anymore. And I did say to him, I wouldn't be in favor of putting that person back on the committee that he was on. So, with that, I do think that the appointment here, the resume again here is, hard to pass up. And we always talk about, the demographics being represented, and I think this would, do just that. Again, I think the person that's not going to be on there is served very well. However, I think this is more than a reason. If we try to contact them, no response. I know for a fact there's another person who's not going to be, who was not already reappointed to a committee that just didn't respond. So they'll find out in the next couple of days that they're no longer a member of that committee. But it's their, something that they should remedy in the future and maybe reapply if they want to.
So, Councilman McGrath.
Just to correct the record, though, he did email Ms. Kiernan this morning, so he has replied. I mean, it was late, but he did reply. I just want to make sure that's on the record. I also received an email saying that no one had his phone number, including the chairwoman. I don't understand how no one had his phone number to reach out to him. So again, there's just some process issues here, and I think this can be discouraging or frustrating for future volunteers. And also, again, we've shown grace to other people in the past, but this is being treated very strictly, so it is what it is.
I
have to say something else.
Deputy Mayor.
We're not being strict here. We're talking about grown-up individuals. You commit to something. I know every month, it's the first and third Monday of the month, I have a council meeting. If I have a technical issue, I have a phone, I could reach out to people. You know, there has to be a little bit of responsibility put on that individual to make an effort, to not be present for 6 months. In my mind, it just says a lot. And that's all. Done.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Councilwoman Holland,
Abstain.
Councilwoman McGrath,
Abstain.
Councilman Roman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McAvoy,
Yes.
Mayor Tamboro.
Yes.
Mayor, motion passes 3-0. No abstentions.
Okay. Thank you. I will move the confirmation of Ms. Pearson, who is the representative from the Environmental Commission that the Environmental Commission has designated to be the planning board representative. Is there a second? Second is made by Councilman Roman. Any discussion? I'd like to thank Ms. Pearson for not only her membership on this committee, but also serving as its chairperson, doing an extraordinary amount of work in applications, organizations, especially when we were between land use officers and secretaries, and she really had to fill in and has done a great job. I think it's a great choice by the Environmental Commission. And any other discussion? Yes, Mr.
For the record, Mr. Mayor, for those that don't know, Jessica Pearson is my wife, so I will be abstaining from this. So
Thank you.
I will just second the mayor's comments on her work ethic on that commission. She takes this work incredibly seriously and puts a lot of time and analysis into it. So thank you for serving on a very difficult position.
Thank you. Clerk, call roll, please.
Councilwoman Holland,
Yes.
Councilwoman McGrath,
Abstain.
Councilman Roman,
Yes.
Mayor Tamboro.
Yes.
Mayor passes 4-0, 1 abstention.
So 2 abstentions.
I'm sorry, 3-0, 2 abstention.
Thank you. And finally, would somebody like to move Mr. Burns as the Rent Control Board member expiring 6/30? So moved. Motion made by the Deputy Mayor. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any discussion on Mr. Burns? Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Councilwoman Holland,
Yes.
Councilwoman McGrath,
Yes.
Councilman Roman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McAvoy,
yes.
Mayor Tamboro.
Yes.
Mayor, motion passes 5-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next item is the council liaisons to committees and commissions. I did ask in the last meeting if anybody wanted to change, to reach out. I have not heard any desire to make any changes. So I will be moving that the representatives will be as follows: Environmental Commission, Mayor Tamboro; Green Team, Deputy Mayor McAvoy; Historical Preservation Commission, Deputy Mayor McAvoy; the Multicultural Inclusion and Accessibility Advisory Committee, Councilman McGrath; Municipal Alliance Committee, Councilman Holland; the Neighborhood Traffic and Safety Committee, Councilwoman McGrath; Open Space Advisory, Mayor Tamboro, Councilman Roman; Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, Councilwoman Holland; and the Shade Tree Commission, Councilman McGrath. It's no seconds.
There's just like a note, there's a committee missing of a joint flood advisory meeting that I also serve as liaison to. I'd love to continue in that role. Or before the motion, if we could amend it.
I will amend the motion to include Councilman Holland as the Joint Flood Advisory Committee member. Same expiration. For a second.
Second.
Motion's been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I think we just do this by a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, thank you, everybody, for your commitment to our case. All right, moving on to our next item on the agenda is the discussion on the Green Team ordinance. I'm just going to pull that up. The big graph changes to the ordinance. Anybody have any thoughts, comments on the green fee ordinance? I know the one matter that we had been discussing was there are quite a few salaried employees of the township on here, and we're discussing whether they should have a vote or not. And there was a discussion over whether that was required by Sustainable New Jersey in order to get grant money. So do we have an answer on that?
Need staff.
What's that?
We don't need staff in these committees.
Well, there was apparently an exception with this.
Currently, this ordinance as written, I apologize, no one asked me that, or no one told me that this was a question with regard to employees, but employees are required, you are required, based upon your current ordinance, to have 3 full-time salaried employees of the township as members of the Green Team.
Yeah.
And you have 8 public members who are residents.
Do those salaried employees vote?
Currently, yes.
They do. Okay. But should they? I guess that's the question. Do they need to vote in order for a sustainable Verona or sustainable New Jersey funding to come in?
I can research the issue.
Okay. If you would, please.
Answer for you for our next council meeting, but certainly before then, via email.
And the other piece I'd like to consider is, being that we do have a difficult time finding people for this committee, this many members actually could prevent us from having a quorum on this committee. So it's maybe one that we actually want to consider reducing the number, because we already have a member of the Environmental Commission and Shade Tree Commission, which would bring us to 10 members. If we exclude the manager, the council representative, and the full-time salaried employees, so maybe we make it 9. So we have 2 + 2 + 7 or something along those lines. So we have an odd number of voting members if we're not going to have the staff vote.
So 7 public members?
The 7 public members plus the 2 committee recommendations would be so we have 9 voting members. But I think before we move forward with that, we need to see if there's any requirements from Sustainable Verona that you have to have X number of people on.
That's one minor thing. I see chairman appears twice in this. Can we change that to chairperson, please?
Or simply chair.
Or sure.
Councilman McGrath?
Yeah, so I also have a minor comment, just not that I want to start wordsmithing the purposes of committees, but it just jumped out that on number 4, coordinate input for the Sustainable Verona webpage, but they also have a social media page. So I don't know if we just want to throw in webpage and social media. I'm just putting that out there. I do want to make just a strategic point. I am not proposing we add this in now, but it's something that the deputy mayor can take back to Sustainable Verona. Sustainable Jersey is moving very heavily into the field of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And in fact, there are more points to be earned by going in those initiatives. And those initiatives actually really overlap with the mission of the Multicultural Inclusion and Accessibility Advisory Committee. So similar to how the Environmental Commission and Shade Tree each have a seat here, because there's other actions that really apply to their expertise, we may want to consider, wrapping formally the Multicultural Committee in with sustainable, but that has to be directed, I think, by the council or by the town manager. So I'm just throwing that out there, as I use sustainable, I sit on multicultural, I go to a lot of trainings during the league. That's where they're moving towards. So if we don't make that change now, we may need to make it in a year. So I'm just putting that out there.
I don't structurally have an issue with that. We would then want to bring our number of public members down to 6, because 3 and that's 6. But we'll wait for the lawyers. Advice on that.
I will relay that. I have a couple comments on this, but then I'm going to ask that maybe we table this, because the Green Team doesn't meet again until early August.
Yes. Yeah, we're not in a rush.
Have it in time for that.
But the problem is they can't, because there's no quorum.
Yeah.
Because there's not enough people. You can't technically have a public meeting. So you're going to.
So we should just pass this and then revise it later on.
You're going to need to have those conversations offline, because you can't technically they can't make official recommendations to the council because they don't have Not
But
necessarily.
if we don't pass this, then those terms will all expire. Or they have all.
We just renewed everybody, but this fee restructuring.
Okay.
Got it, Council.
I guess I have a question for Brian. So if any committee, advisory committee can't make quorum, can't they still meet and have a conversation, but they can't take formal action? They can't approve minutes?
Well, by the very nature, they're advisory, right? So anyone can always come here and give you their opinions. They can say, we met as a group of 3 instead of a group of 9. And the 3 of us recommend to the council X, Y, and Z. They can still
have a discussion, but they can't take
not an official.
not an
public meeting.
official
Can't
capacity.
make a recommendation.
They can't make a
As the
recommendation.
committee.
Yeah.
But we can go forth with that.
Okay.
Just a couple other comments.
Yes, please.
We have your public members should be appointed by the mayor and council and serve for terms of 1 year. I don't know if that's it. Can we stagger those years? Because it looks like in our thing, they're all expire.
Right, but we implemented this ordinance when they were going for status.
Okay.
So we had certain obligations to meet, so I'm sure you could change it now.
I think that's it.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And then it says on C, the mayor and council, so designate one of the members to serve as the chairperson. Usually that's done within the green team. I wonder if you could just change that to
Reasonable recommendation as well.
and that's all.
Okay. Moving on to the Multicultural Inclusion and Accessibility Advisory Committee. Council McGrath.
Yeah, so I'm like, just want to clarify this whole voice but no vote. Like, we're changing these because of it was brought up by the Recreation Committee, but now we're looking at all our advisory committees who can vote. So in this committee, Mr. Aloya, we have the director of the Verona Public Library, the superintendent, an employee from the town manager. So are all of those, what is your recommendation on, can those people vote, or is it only the volunteer public members?
Well, my understanding of our conversation at the last council meeting was the council members were indicating that they were letting others decide, which is understandably because you guys decide make actual action here versus those are recommendations. So you weren't voting. So let's take that away. And then it turned into, oh, let's take the voting rights away from the township manager as well. So when I went back, I looked at that, and that leads us to a greater discussion, right? Is whether or not we should have, like in this case, the superintendent of schools and the library director or their designee vote. And things for the council to consider are like, okay, if you're inviting all these outside people onto your committee and they don't vote, are they going to be dissuaded and not participate and be like, why am I coming here if I don't even really have an actual voting say? I just have a voice. Because your voice, obviously, when you have voice and no vote, you can influence.
Yeah.
But you don't actually have the power to vote, which might, change things one way versus another way. So you look at things of that nature, and again, it's really up to you because this particular committee is decided and it's made by you, so we can do whatever we want there. So I personally like providing everyone on the committee with a vote, understand if the liaison, whether that be the manager or a council person, has a voice and no vote, because sometimes they can overrule, and people, even when you're the mayor or the chair of a meeting, one of the important things is to allow all the others to speak before you speak. So other members don't feel like, oh, the chair thinks this way, so might as well just go that way. So you want everyone to participate in the meeting, is my experience. So therefore, I like everyone having a vote. And that also brings us to the question of, if you're going to have a council person serving as liaison, do you really want the manager or the manager's designee there? Because technical point, whether it's the manager or the council person, and we discussed this during our administrators meeting. We have a meeting every week, myself and management. They're supposed to kind of report back, right? So when you report back, how many people do we need reporting back? All these people with voices and no votes, because you all have the manager being probably the strongest voice, right? Especially this form of government, and a huge, strong voice. So you send a manager in and he says, this is the way it's going to be. I mean, that can really shut down a really healthy discussion in some of these committees if the manager, maybe a little less so if the manager's designee, but when the manager's speaking, a lot of times you're just like, well, that's what he's doing. And, that person's in charge, he or she.
Well, in the purpose of this committee, this committee is to serve and support the town administration. So we need someone from the town administration there to be directing this committee. But in terms of voting, I guess this is my other concern. What I've noticed on some of the committees that have the superintendent or the library director as an example, their schedules are really busy. Are they being counted towards quorum? Because that's another issue. If they're voting, but then can we not count them towards quorum? Because sometimes they're just busy and they're just, this applies to VMAC, it applies to this committee. So
If you're giving them the ability to vote, they should count as quorum. If they have a voice and no vote, I think there's a decision there that you can make. You can, if you wanted to, count them as quorum, but you don't have to. For instance, the council and the manager, when you guys are designee, I'm assuming your attendance rates are extremely high. So you might want to actually just leave it the way it is, and you can count them as quorum. If there's a chance of you guys not showing up, then you don't want to count as quorum because you don't want that to happen.
I don't think anybody who is not voting should not count for quorum, for sure.
That's normally the common way it works.
And we can determine what the quorum for any committee is. Okay, so it doesn't have to be a quorum as a majority. We could say the quorum to meet is 5 people. We can have a number that's quorum as well. So even if we leave them with the vote, and I think it's important for, I don't want anybody in the municipal government, the municipal management to have a vote. I think that should be, but because we're asking people to come in from outside, in this case, the library director cannot, but the superintendent of schools can send a designee. So they should have always somebody present.
yeah, the library director can also send a designee.
So it does say that.
Yeah.
So we could say, even if we had 11 voting members, we could say the quorum is 5.
Okay, let's do that.
So that might be the easiest way, and just say the quorum is 5. That work?
Yeah.
And we should also put in here that the high school members are not voting members. It's optional. So actually, I mean, they theoretically could be. I don't have a problem with them being voting members at all. But if because my concern was they're optional, we may not always have them kind of a quorum. But if we're saying quorum is 5 people, my position is that they should be voting then. Yeah. So.
And I just want to reiterate, and I think Councilwoman Holland wants to say something, but I just want to reiterate on this committee, we designed this really well. And the library director and the superintendent and having someone from management is all about coordination. So, but I now, if we're moving towards quorum is 5 for this committee, I think that's great. I will bring this to the new chair though, and they don't meet until the end of July, so we may just want to wait.
One of these items.
Yeah.
And the library director, superintendent have votes?
Are they voting or not?
Yeah.
I would say yes.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll reserve my comments until the rec ordinance.
All right, we're moving to the Neighborhood Traffic and Safety Advisory Committee. Comments on this item. We have included the voice no vote for the member of the council. I would extend that to the chief of police as well as a municipal employee. And that would leave us at, if the superintendent or their designee is here, and then we have 7 public members, that leaves us with 8 votes. And I would put quorum here as 4 members.
Yeah.
Yes. Quorum is 4.
That's it. That'd be great.
Because when I was liaison there were some times where it was, we didn't always have a quorum. We would have to wait.
Well, I think with the fact that we've had we have new people on the committee, I'm hopeful for the future.
Well, I counted for the quorum, because we voted at that point. Technically, I usually didn't, but.
And this committee does vote, so.
Yeah.
That's important.
All right, quorum 4 for there. Remove the chief as. Anybody else? Okay. All right, on the Rec Commission, I will bring up my previous thoughts that township manager shouldn't necessarily have to serve on this committee, being that we have forced a designee because we have an administrator already on in our director of community services, who would have no vote, a council member who would have no vote, and that I would recommend moving to 9 public members to have the quorum before. Have those signed. Agreed. Councilman Holland?
So I'm not sure if I necessarily agree that we don't need the manager's designee on there. We actually have a very actively engaged member of the committee who serves as the manager's designee, and actually provides a lot of value to the committee. I hear the statement about it can close down communication, but at the same time, I think the expectation is that the Department of Community Services was benefited by also having the administration here to talk about budgetary items and other things that are perhaps beyond some of the more granular details of like the recreation department. So having a representative from the administration as part of the committee, they could have those kind of conversations about capital improvements, whether it be Everett Field or Centennial Field or other. In fact, we just had a very robust discussion on the pool finances, and that was brought forward by the administration. So I'm not sure if we need to remove that individual at this time. I would say that increasing to 9 public members is very helpful because there is a tremendous amount of interest in this committee. And I think, you know, the more members, it may make it a little bit easier to find quorum because we do have a lot of members with a lot of conflicts at times. And this body does meet every month with limited exceptions. And so we have meetings throughout the summer as well, and people are very busy. With regard to the conversation previously regarding quorum, the genesis of this discussion came from a misunderstanding in the advisory committee where the chairman was not necessarily counting myself and others toward quorum. And so believed that we didn't have quorum because essentially we had 2 public members, the manager's designee, myself, and community services, and the chairman. So I guess 3 public members. And so there was this thought that we didn't have quorum because the vast majority there were essentially from, or at least half the people there were from the township employment and wouldn't otherwise be voting. So they wanted that clarity. And there was the thought too that it creates an awkwardness when recreation would be voting on recommendations perhaps that go to the council. And so they were uncomfortable with that because I think some of the recommendations at times are going to be that the residents want to see improvements, want to see substantial changes that may not necessarily comport with our budget, or may be something that, you know, the administration has considered but moved away from. So having those employees vote as part of these recommendations may put them in an uncomfortable position. And if they're forming a substantial part of the quorum, then that could lead to interesting votes of the advisory committee. So essentially, they just wanted it to be more free and open, and they wanted more clarity about quorum and voting requirements. So again, if we increase it to 9, I think that's wonderful. If you want to set a quorum limit, then I would recommend that it be of public members. And I, at this time, would prefer to maintain the manager's designee. But the rec committee has been more actively engaged. And if they would like to change that going forward, I think they could come forward with that recommendation.
Mr. Lay, just to clarify for all the other quorums, my intent was when we set a quorum number that be voting public members. I think that was
so
clear.
on some of the ordinances, I think all but one, the first one, we have if you don't have the vote, you're not part of the quorum.
Okay.
And then on certain of these, you set the quorum at, you know, like this one is 4 members.
Say 4 public voting public members.
That's correct, but that's the only people that can vote.
Yes, but that's why we want to say that in the quorum number.
Yeah,
Deputy Mayor.
I just have a question. Was the Councilman Holland, was the township manager's designee a voting member? Did he vote?
So previously, we were advised by the township attorney that we were all voting members. But yes, the designee did vote. I usually did not, even though apparently I was eligible to vote. Just seemed odd voting on recommendations to myself.
My only worry here is that, so what our attorney said is that if he now doesn't have a voice, will he stop showing up?
Well, he would have a voice. He wouldn't have a vote.
I'm not a voice, excuse me, a vote. Then he might not show up.
Like, I think as we expand the number, there's a potential that so right now, it's interesting the discussion on the manager's designee, because typically the manager's designee is a staff member, another staff member. For the rec committee, the manager's designee is not a staff member.
Mhm.
So they couldn't provide the same insight as the manager's designee on those items, right? So that's why I didn't think it was as necessary. But we could certainly move the person who holds that position now into one of the regular positions when we expand the committee. But I wanted to ask Mr. Diarco whether he thinks that the manager's designee should be on, or whether community services is enough in your mind, because you can always show up. You're allowed to show up to any committee meeting whenever you want.
Thank you, Mayor. Any of the committees that since I got here, there's representatives, paid representatives on most all the committees. The chief of police on traffic safety advisory, he meets with me relative what I've done since I got here. The reports from traffic safety advisory come to me through the chief, meeting with the chief, and then I send them to the county, make sure we're acting on them, make sure you budget them. I did the same thing with literally any committee where I see there's an issue that has to be addressed by us, funding, policy decision. I don't necessarily have to be at the meeting. I stepped in on recreation. I have David there who's communicating with me more than the last director did. And David will literally advise me of what's difficult at the meeting. I sent in the CFO and myself to discuss budgeting because they weren't doing budgeting the way they should to get it up to us in administration. So very honestly, I don't think the manager has to be on any of these committees because he can walk into any of them when there's a need for him to be there if he's reading the minutes and keeping up with it. And you're getting advice from the residents of the community as to what they think the community needs, their advisory committees. Because when you come to the Environmental Commission is a commission, Shade Tree is a commission, they have more approval power than your advisory committees. So do I think the manager needs to be on every committee and have a designee? No, I don't. I think if you're literally monitoring what's happening in the pulse of the council here, where you're having issues in the community, then yes, the manager will advise them. I'll be at your meeting. I'll be technically a guest, which at the meeting, you have the right to speak, you weigh in, but you're not steering them to what you think should be happening. The advisory committee is to advise you and you make the policy. I show up when they have issues that involve the administration, management, budgeting, finance. Shade Tree was a prime example of having a capital budget in addition to Shade Tree in the DPW budget. You introduced capital budget for the first year and we're reviewing, is it sufficient for the community? But that's what should be happening. So I don't think you need the manager appointed to every committee.
Councilman McGrath?
Well, on this particular issue, I could go either way, because I think when the staff members are working well with the manager, they are sufficient to be the only ones in the room. But we have to think of a scenario if things are different, and which has played out, when in certain situations. So I would like to keep it in there, and if it turns out like if it's not filled, it's not filled. But regardless, so I think it's good to have flexibility as we think in the future with future staff. That's interesting.
I'd like to take the opportunity to streamline, and this is one of the only committees that mentions a specific staff member. So we could just word it as the manager's designee, or the manager would pick the staff member that's on it. And then the manager could appear at whenever the manager doesn't feel like that staff member is doing the right thing, the manager would have the right to appear and actually have that role, and could call anybody in as a resource. So maybe that's the way of doing it, where, because in everywhere else, aside from I think the police chief, it says the manager is.
So I'm sorry, are you now proposing to remove the director of community services from this?
I'm proposing that the manager would designate the director of community services as the manager's designee, But if the manager felt like the director of community services wasn't doing what he needed to do, the manager could step in very easily. But it really should be the manager's prerogative in that case to appoint the liaison, but that would deal with any concerns about the manager's involvement. So while I think the manager would always appoint that individual as their designee, the director of community services, it's be up to managers if they wanted to step in, they could.
I guess it's not clear to me why there's this interest in removing the staff members, because you only have 2 listed here aside from the liaison, whereas there are other committees, whether it be traffic and safety or MIAC or VMAC, that do list a variety of staff members. I don't actually think that is a problem currently, that it says the manager or the manager's designee, and then specifically identifies the director of community services. The committee has found it very helpful to have Dave there and to have it identified as part of Dave's obligations. I'm not aware of there being any complaints about that. So I'm kind of the opinion, like, why is it that there's this desire to amend these aspects of the ordinance? What has proven to be a challenge and therefore an opportunity that could be corrected was the question about quorum and voting, which was presented, and then the opportunity to expand the committee to have more voting members of the public. So that to me seems like we can just address those things at this time. And if the director of the community services or the township manager find issue with these other elements, you can come back and make recommendations and we could change them at that time. Having sat on this committee for so many years, it's never really been a problem. So I'm not sure why we're working so hard to address this when the committee doesn't have a concern about it.
I think we make policy moving forward, but we just heard from the manager that his presence isn't necessarily required at the meeting. So we're hearing from the expert on the topic. But if we don't have yes, Deputy Mayor.
I think the thing here is it's another representative from the town that the manager's picking. So, I mean, do we want to go to 11 people instead of having 9? Because if we have him and 2 others, then we're at 10. We can't leave it at 10. I think it's just a question of how many people we have here. I mean, I know this person, I know they're very knowledgeable with sports in town and they're coaching and involved. So it's someone you don't want to, and like we said, he can always be one of the next 2 people that go in, but you have to have a title of manager's designee on it. And then, like I said, he also should, he's telling him he's going to still go to the meetings, but does he get discouraged to going to every meeting because he's not going to be a voting member?
I think my point is I don't want to make legislation, that's based on specific individuals. But what I would do is if you've had an engaged person on this committee that has served as a manager's designee, make them the 8th voting member. But at the same point, if the argument is we need to keep the township manager in here because the township manager needs to be in this committee, in reality, if this other individual has been attending in lieu of the township manager, it would suggest to me the township manager's presence is not necessary on the committee. And so I think you can't argue both sides of that. But
Mr. Diarco, you did attend a number of recreation advisory committee meetings.
I did when issues arose that, one was the education on programming budgets, recommending they break up into subcommittees so that they can function more efficiently, which they did do. There was other issues where when I review minutes or I get issues into my desk, then I think it's mandatory that I attend just because I'm the town manager. I think the designee that they have now should be a regular appointment. And then he votes like he should. Designees, I don't need an order. If the manager's listed to go or not, and I need a department head that's responsible, I literally advise them, you have to go to the next meeting or the next 3 meetings until the issue is resolved if I can't get there myself. So it usually is a department head that is designated to attend meetings for me if I can't get some, because you can only do so many meetings in a month. I think all of those members they were very engaged and they should be appointed, and I strongly recommend that you increase the size of that committee also. But any issues within any of your committees that your manager has to be appraised of issues or problems and see them, he or she can go anytime.
Executive officer
Yeah.
is Sally, but not just right anytime. So we don't need involved in things. Okay. Any other comments on the rec department? Revenue. Okay, item 7 is the C2 zone, which we are waiting on for review. Councilman McGrath asked for a discussion of the election. Councilman McGrath, you have the floor.
Great, thank you. So we continue to get positive feedback from residents on the idea of doing a voter referendum in November. I know we had a brief conversation where some members of this council indicated that they were not interested. I want to formalize this. Some people may have changed their mind in the interim. So I'm making a motion that this council direct the administration to draft an ordinance to add a voter referendum to the November 2024 ballot to ask voters if we should move the Verona Town Council election from May to November. So I have that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Good. Council discussion? I'll start. My undecided position hasn't changed on this. I have suggested that it may be a good idea, but that we also don't need a referendum. So at this point, I would be a no vote on the referendum, but not necessarily a no vote on this moving forward. But I do appreciate the councilman formalizing this. This is one of the last meetings. It's not the last meeting we can put the referendum on. But I don't think it's at this point necessary to have the referendum. I'm still undecided, as I mentioned in several previous council meetings. There's more information that I am looking to compile and trying to answer questions that I have for myself. And that's not a process I'm going to rush when we don't really need to rush this decision. Either council session on this motion. What's this motion?
I will chime in on it. It's funny, I just texted someone this morning about when we moved it to the May election, someone who was in town. So I wanted to pick their brain on it. They weren't available till on vacation this week. So not knowing this was coming up, but knowing it was coming up eventually, I wanted to get out ahead of this. But I too will reiterate what I've said in the past. I do believe that if you take it out of the May election, and this isn't to be twisted into, I think more people are smarter in November or smarter in May. I think it becomes a partisan vote when it goes to November. I think Verona is a nonpartisan town, and I believe that the May election is better and sticks to that. And that's why I would continue to want to have it continue in May.
My opinion similarly has not changed. I am in favor of retaining a May election because I think it gives us a sort of a noise-free atmosphere for us to discuss just the issues of the Township of Verona. I think it's very healthy for our town that we have that standalone election, and I feel like the conversations that we have with our community are excellent during that time period. My opinion just hasn't changed on this. I just think it's better for the town to have it in May.
Councilman Hollins.
Thank you. I seconded the motion because it is phrased as seeking a referendum. And so hearing the voice of the voters on this issue. So I'm undecided, and I actually have no preference, and I'm happy to knock on doors, whether it be in a lead up to a May election or to a November election. So I really don't see a difference in terms of my process, but I think the voters do care. And it's an opportunity to get some of the best data available, which would be voter preference expressed in the non-binding referendum. So I don't see any harm in putting it to the voters to have their say. So I was willing to second the motion and have this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. And as I think I expressed previously, my concern is when you put a referendum on the November ballot, to ask people if they want to move the council meeting to the council elections in November, there's going to be inherent difference in opinion there if the voters are not or an agreement, because we haven't really established if the same people or what percentage of the same people are voting in both elections. I have gotten quite a bit of feedback from people that have asked not to move this. I've gotten feedback from people who have asked to move it. I think that the councilman's concerns about partisanship is correct. We do have a municipal Democratic chair serving on the council, and I do think that adds some concern over this as well. But once again, I'm the undecided individual, and I would have been more comfortable if we could have done a May referendum, but we can't do a May referendum. So as a result, I need to analyze more data, and as somebody who's potentially the tiebreaker, that's an opportunity that I need some time to do. So I will be voting no on the referendum only, and as I said, I have not made a decision on the other side, but I appreciate everybody's comments on the council, and it's a worthwhile discussion to have. Clerk, call the roll, please, on the motion.
Councilwoman Holland,
Yes.
Councilwoman McGrath,
Yes.
Councilman Roman,
No.
Deputy Mayor McAvoy.
No.
Mayor Tamboro.
No.
Mayor, the motion fails 3-2.
And Councilman McGrath, you had a question on the state budget allocations?
Yeah, so thank you for your update. Previously reaffirming that the open space grants that we had applied for were in the final budget. My question is, there was an opportunity to try to get Verona's emergency services complex as a line item in the budget. And I was wondering if you had conversations with Senator Carrata or our assembly people on our chances of getting in that budget. Was there feedback? And what basically happened? Because I'm assuming we didn't get a line item.
No, we did not get a line item for that, and it's something that we can continue moving toward. I think they have offered their support on the federal side, offering letters of support to the Congress in support of the project. So they have been helping. But at this point, a lot of the big ticket items like that were reserved for like towns like where the budget share is it's in his town. So like, there's like $12 million for a school. It's the town that the budget share was. So unfortunately, in those negotiations, we said we were not included on that, but it's something that we can keep pushing. And I didn't think it would be an immediate process on that. So
I saw that there were some towns like Livingston, they got a share. So again, I think we have an opportunity to examine that process. And again, looking at the strengths of the different people on this council and the relationships they may have, can we kind of work that process differently for next year to see if we can get in? Now, granted, no one is upholding the state's budgetary process, as some sort of magnificent standard. It's last minute. It's, they don't post things quickly. So again, can we get smarter on that for next year? And that would just be, an opportunity for improvement and to, see if we can kind of get in there a little bit more. So we turn over every stone possible.
Sure. And as you may recall, I did ask every member of the council to provide names and contacts of anybody in the administration that they had in trying to look at our strengths, and that was not provided to me by members of the council. So I had to use my contacts, and those are still active, but no other council member provided me any of those contacts that we could reach out to. So I appreciate any feedback, but right now it seems like the right people were involved, because those individuals that were providing contacts and reaching out. But certainly if any other council member has something to bring to the table, I would absolutely love to hear it. The manager would love to hear it. We had multiple meetings. We showed certain things, and it's something that we keep moving forward with, but we have another budget in a year. And it's something that we move forward with. Another thing is as we get the actual real plans done and things like that, that's going to help. But I am certainly will renew my request to every member of the council that if they have contacts in the executive administration to leverage them and bring them forward to Mr. Darko and I, so we can work on a unified strategy to reach out to them. But as of now, nobody has done that. At this time, I will open for public comment on any item. Same public comment statement applies. Hearing none, I will close public comment. Our next meeting will be Monday, July 22nd. We've already resolved to go into executive session, which we will do at this time. Will we be taking any official action?
No.
No. Okay. All right. We will see everybody on July 22nd.
Here.